Being drafted into the NFL is a dream come true for any aspiring football player. To go from struggling with a low income, and in some cases no income, to having a bank account with more zeros than you've ever imagined has got to be amazing. But when you have immediate access to a large sum of money, sometimes NFL players don't exactly know what to do with it and end up blowing it right away. With an NFL career averaging 3.3 years, it's no wonder that an estimated 78% of NFL players are either bankrupt or under financial stress within 2 years of retirement. The median income in the NFL is roughly $860,000, and having that kind of income taken away from you after your retirement is definitely going to be difficult. So difficult that it ruined even the most successful NFL players' lives. Stay tuned as we look into NFL players that went bankrupt, and even worse, homeless. Terrell Owens. Terrell Owens entered the NFL draft in 1996 and was chosen by the San Francisco 49ers in the 3rd round. He jumped around between teams until he was released by the Seahawks in 2012. Mostly known for his controversial antics, including spitting on a player, Owens has recorded 153 touchdowns, which is the 5th most all-time of any NFL player. Throughout his lengthy career, he earned an estimated $80 million, although $150,000 of that went to fines for excessive celebrations after his touchdowns, which doesn't seem like a lot when you hear $80 million. However, in a 2012 interview, he told GQ that a bunch of other bad decisions cost him most of that excessive fortune. The wide receiver allowed the wrong kind of financial advisors to handle his money, and apparently they placed it in risky, highly leveraged ventures that never took off, instead costing him millions of his hard-earned fortune. He also had nearly $300,000 stolen by an acquaintance, which he eventually got back, thankfully. Owens also made the mistake of investing in an Alabama casino, which was later deemed illegal by the state. And on top of that, he was responsible for $44,600 a month in child support payments, having 4 kids by 4 different women. According to Celebrity Net Worth, Owens is worth only $100,000 in 2020. This is a top NFL player. It's kind of unbelievable. It is clear he did not handle his finances correctly, and he has a few tips for any NFL player. My advice to any fan or athlete out there, just don't live beyond your means. At that time, I got sucked into wanting to be like everybody else, the guys with the Mercedes and all the flashy cars and the jewelry. I think those are some of the most idiotic purchases I think players can do, especially when they don't have that money in the bank account to really pay for that stuff. Jackie Wallace. Jackie Wallace was drafted in the 2nd round in 1973 by the Vikings. The cornerback also played for the Colts and Rams and was on the taxi squad for Super Bowl VIII and was a starter in Super Bowl IX, finishing his career with 11 career interceptions in 70 games played. During the offseason after Super Bowl IX, a team representative for the Rams told Wallace that his Super Bowl ring was being sent in the mail, and there was no need for him to attend the Rams' ring party. This was due to an altercation in the Rose Bowl locker room, where he berated his coach for not using him in the game. And that's how Wallace found out his NFL career was over. After his retirement, he didn't have much in savings. In the 1970s, the NFL contracts weren't as big as they are now, with Wallace playing for around only $27,500 a year. Patrick Mahomes would be shocked, to say the least. Wallace estimated that he made just shy of $400,000 in his 7-season career, which was a good income back then, but he just didn't save any of it. He struggled to adjust to normal life and turned to alcohol to cope. Wallace worked on an oil production platform and actually made the same amount of money he did in the NFL, but 2 life-changing events destroyed any sort of security he had created because his mother passed and his cousin introduced him to cocaine. Wallace was discovered homeless on the streets of New Orleans in 1990 by photojournalist Ted Jackson for the Times-Picayune. Jackson published a photo he took of Wallace, and seeing himself in that way inspired him to make an attempt at sobriety. It worked. Wallace became sober, got married, and bought a house, and according to the Times-Picayune, for years he would call Ted on Thanksgiving to say thank you. "It only takes one slip," he would say, "and I'll end up right back where you found me. That picture you took, in the fetal position, I'm being born again." However, when Wallace didn't call on Thanksgiving in 2002, Jackson knew something wasn't right. Wallace had turned back to drugs and was living his life back on the streets. Despite having no finances, his status as an NFL player allowed him to get drugs on credit, as he was still getting NFL pension checks. The Times-Picayune quoted him as saying, "I was still getting the NFL pension checks, around $650 a month. It wasn't enough to get a place, but it was enough for me to go out and get loaded." Wallace was arrested and convicted in 2008 for writing bad checks, and he was sentenced to treatment. He achieved sobriety again in 2014 and joined Narcotics Anonymous, but in July 2017, he vanished again, turning back to drugs, and currently nobody knows where he is. Vince Young. Who knew the Cheesecake Factory could be a factor in an NFL player's bankruptcy? After being drafted in the first round by the Tennessee Titans in 2006, Vince Young had a slightly above-average career. He actually made the Madden 08 cover, but maybe that's why he had bad luck. Spooky. Anyway, Young has not been with the NFL since 2011, and he struggled afterwards, declaring bankruptcy in 2014 after racking up as much as $10 million in debt, with as little as $500,000 in assets. Young put blame on his financial advisors and an uncle whom he appointed as his manager, saying they misappropriated $5.5 million of his money, although apparently he spent $5,000 per week at the Cheesecake Factory in his early years in the NFL, so maybe this is on him. In an interview with Sports Illustrated, Young confirmed he spent $15,000 during one dining experience at the Cheesecake Factory, admitting it was the most I ever spent on a meal in my life. We want to know what he thinks is the best meal there because no one can decide. There is also a rumor that in 2007 he paid for every seat on a Southwest Airlines flight to avoid sitting near other passengers, but he did not confirm or deny this. Mark Brunell. Mark Brunell had a long career, 18 years in fact. You would think that time span would have anyone set for life, but he went bankrupt in 2010 while he was still in the NFL, owing $24.8 million. The quarterback passed for more than 32,000 yards combined, threw 184 touchdowns, went to the Pro Bowl 3 times, won a Super Bowl, and also held the world record for longest throw and catch of a hot dog into a bun. Picture that. But it was his bad luck with investing that left him with financial woes, losing $9 million in a failed Whataburger franchise. Why anyone would invest in Whataburger is beyond us. Having made around $50 million playing for the NFL, Brunell spent a lot of his money on mansions for himself, including one home that cost $9.5 million. He also started a real estate company called Champion LLC, but when the housing market crashed, he lost all of the $11 million that he invested. That loss, coupled with his Whataburger loss, does not sound like a good time for anyone. Warren Sapp. The former 300-pound defensive tackle for the Buccaneers and Raiders, Warren Sapp retired in 2008. He was a Super Bowl champion, was named to 7 Pro Bowls, and recorded 96.5 total sacks, so you could say he had a pretty good 13-year career. Despite becoming a Hall of Famer and having a 7-year broadcasting gig with the NFL Network, it wasn't enough to keep him financially stable, and in 2012 he declared bankruptcy with $6.7 million in debt. It was so bad he had to auction off his possessions, including his $4.1 million 15,000 square foot home that sold for $2.1 million, a lion skin rug, his expensive 240 pair Air Jordan collection, a large painting of a nude woman, and a pair of boxing gloves signed by Muhammad Ali. That would have made for an interesting auction. According to the Tampa Bay Times, Sapp had $826.04 in a checking account and $339.31 in a savings account when he declared bankruptcy. He also owed plenty of people money, including his ex-wife and 4 other women he fathered children with. In 2015, Sapp was arrested for allegedly soliciting a prostitute and assault, and his contract with the NFL Network was terminated. Despite earning over $80 million in an NFL career, it turns out having incredibly expensive taste and a penchant for fathering children is detrimental to finances. Dan Marino. Dan Marino had a 17-season career in the NFL. A quarterback for the Miami Dolphins, he was named to 9 Pro Bowls, and in 1986, he became the first quarterback in NFL history to record 3 consecutive seasons of 30 or more touchdown passes. Despite his NFL retirement in 1999, he went on to have a career as a sportscaster and an analyst, which is the dream of any retired player, as it means your lucrative income isn't necessarily ending alongside your retirement. All seemed well until Marino made a business move that cost him most of his fortune. A company named Digital Domain Media Group Incorporated, which was founded by director James Cameron. You know, the one who made the movie about those blue people? Anyway, the company gained popularity when it was discovered that they were responsible for that Tupac Coachella hologram back in 2012. Marino purchased over 1.5 million shares in the company. However, that business went bankrupt the same year as the Tupac hologram, causing Marino to lose around $14 million. Then, in 2018, he sold his home at a 16% loss. Marino isn't exactly bankrupt, but for a trailblazing quarterback whose career lasted 17 seasons, he's not exactly having the best time. From rags to riches and back to rags again, being an NFL player isn't all it's cracked up to be. With all the money the NFL has, can they get their players a financial coach or something? That would be a nice thing to do. Do you know what's also a nice thing to do? Clicking our subscribe button. Thanks, team.